Welcome everybody to the Chief Happiness podcast. And I'm so thrilled that today I am going to interview Simone Anliker. My name is Veronique Kilian. I am a Chief Happiness Officer trainer. I'm researching how people can get happier in times of the lockdown, especially, and during social distancing. And Simone Anliker is the founder of the Global Dyad Meditation Project. And she wrote a book called The Power of Dyad. And maybe you can show it, Simone?
Show it here. So it's The Power of Dyad Meditation, yes. And,
yes.
The subtitle is The New Way of Meditating in Times of Loneliness and Social Stress.
Yes, yes. And this book went into the #1 of Kindle on Amazon Kindle within 24 hours. So it's really amazing that so many people are interested in the diet. This interview will be about an hour, and we are going to talk about what is a diet, what is the format of a diet, what does scientific research show about the effects of doing a diet, what happens in the brains when we are doing a diet, and why is this such a popular way of a new way of meditating in this era of lockdown and social distancing, when people struggle with social stress and loneliness. And I'm going to look also on this subject from a happiness perspective. As I already said, I'm a trainer and a coach, and I also coach teams to work better and more happy. I wrote a book called Happiness at Work, and for you, it's until now it's in Dutch, and I'm waiting for an English publisher who's very enthusiastic to have it translate so more people can enjoy it. And so let's see how dieting, if I can use that as a verb, is supporting us to create more happiness in our lives. Okay, the first question for you, Simone, is can you say something about what is a diet? Because I can imagine a lot of people don't know what it is, and it may even sound a bit fake. And also you can tell something more about yourself if you want.
Yeah, I'm still trying to practice to pronounce it correctly. I think it is Dyad, because normally people think it is something has something to do with food. The way we are, the European say it in English, it sounds more like a diet, but it doesn't have anything to do with a diet. It is a dyad, and the dyad actually means two. So.
Yes,
two people sitting opposite from each other, and yes, it is a way of meditating as a pair, not as we are normally or usually used to do meditation all by ourselves, closing our eyes, going inside of us, and then just pondering, hoping that our mind, busy mind, calms down, which mostly is not happening. And so it is just really nice to have someone being present with me. And we have a question that helps us to focus also on that question. I just recently, actually, someone who is on the call just recently said, and I probably can call, name her, it's Cassian. You had such a beautiful feedback lately about you're going to do this for the rest of your life, because it's such an easy way that keeps you centered and keeps you focused, and just really help, an easy way to meditate. It's an easy and joyful way to meditate.
Yeah. And just for clarification, for people who think of a meditation most people think of meditation sitting alone or maybe in a group with closed eyes, sitting in a chair, but that's not what you mean by dieting, right? If I
No,
so
exactly. Yes, that's the nice thing where two people sitting opposite of each other. The person who is meditating might close her or his eyes, but the person who is present with that, he or she has his eyes open. So and being present there with that other person. So it is a way of meditating in the presence of someone else.
yeah, it's actually a kind of inquiry, right? Because the person who is talking is really sharing his or her inner dialogue, I would say. Maybe as I experienced the global Dyad is the person who is talking has this safe space to really go into observing his or her own feelings, thoughts, uh, awareness about how you feel in the body, how you feel emotionally, what you think. And it's a space where, because there's a safe space and because there is no judgments and a warm, open-hearted presence, there's a way to really go within without having to be ashamed or censor oneself. And it creates this open space for oneself to deeply observe, reflect on what's happening inside oneself. And
Absolutely. And you mentioned in the beginning the word inquiry. It actually took me quite some time to understand what is an inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was with the help of Adyashanti, and I also named him in the book. I was wondering what is meant by what is an inquiry, what is that really? And he has a beautiful YouTube video where he explains that it's actually to know how to ask a question. And it's not about, normally we're so trained, we hear a question and we're so trained to give the correct or right answer. That's how we grew up. That's how we learned in school. If there is a question, there is a right answer. But what an inquiry actually is, it's not about giving the right answer. The inquiry is just it's like a signpost. It's a door opener. Or recently, what very often comes when I'm in a diet, I see this stage and I see this huge curtain, like in a theater, and you're in theater and you're on the stage, and the curtain is closed, and you stay on one side of that huge curtain, and you see the whole audience. And the inquiry is actually to help you. And sometimes you see the actors or the directors, they are standing in front of this curtain, and then they try to find how to get behind the curtain. And so the inquiry is a door opener or a curtain opener to step through the curtain, or that veil, I would also say, to step into your own inner world, which actually it's much more real. And I think it's very, very timely that the book comes out right now as we have the lockdown, and so many people have more access when they take their time to go behind the curtain. If they slow down, if they see also the gift in what we're experiencing right now, to have time and then go behind the curtain and explore what's behind, or what's behind our, behind our mind, and explore. And then we don't know what's there. And that's what the inquiry is. We cannot give an answer of something we know, because behind the curtain, that's kind of the realm of the unknown. So the inquiry helps us to open up, to see what's emerging from that inner world, and not filtered through a mind that already has had the experience or know. So it's listening, as you explained just before, it's deeply listening to what are my sensations, what's going on in my body, or what's going on in my emotional space, what's going on in my mental space. And then after a while, and maybe we go there a little bit later when we have a look at the research and what's happening to our brainwave, after a while, the brain waves are slowing down, and we start to see images that come up. And there's that nice, I think it's from the Bible, that the soul is communicating through images.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when we're on that level, we're closer to who we really are, and then get, that's why in the beginning I called it the wisdom from inside, or guidance through the wisdom from inside, is because we're connecting with who we truly are and do get new information we normally don't have access when we're kind of really busy in our daily life.
Actually, what you're saying is that when someone does this inquiry, this person is going within him or herself, and the answers are emerging. Like, you don't know yet what it is. It's really here in the here and now. And I would call it a combination of mindfulness and nonviolent communication, because in the mindfulness there's also this observing of oneself, and do it without judgment, right? And even if there are judgments, you can say them. You can say something like, I notice my mind is going everywhere and I have these and these thoughts about it, but it's very in the now. It's now I'm thinking about this and this, or now I get an image of that and that. So it's a very it's something that is facilitating you to be in the moment and to feel and sense and express yourself in that moment. In my book, I call it presencing. To be present and to make that a verb, it's presencing is to really be with what is occurring at that moment. And even if it's negative emotion or if it's positive emotion, just to be there with your attention. And it's also originating from the nonviolent communication, right? Because you're a nonviolent communication certified trainer, or would you not say it's something originated in that?
Well, I wouldn't say this. It is the Dyad is not originated in the nonviolent communication, but the person who I learned from was Robert Gonzalez, and he says, I just opened a book. He says he learned the origin of the Dyad meditation is in the Enlightenment Intensive. So 50 years ago, Charles Berner, he introduced the Enlightenment, like this format of two people sitting opposite of across from each other, having a question. He started with the question, tell me who you are. It was more an instruction. It was not so much an inquiry, but it was more an instruction. So it's kind of, tell me who you are. And Robert learned from Charles Berner. And Charles Berner was amazed how effective this way of meditating with each other was. His purpose or his goal was enlightenment, so that people have an enlightened experience, which is knowing who they really are. So this insight of who they truly are. And in his first Enlightenment Intensive, when he had this, he was guided to that process too, that over 40% of the people had an enlightenment experience. And even in the book, I have a beautiful testimonial of one of the women who has done Enlightenment Intensive, and she wrote that she at the time was clinically depressed. So when she had her first enlightened experience and she realized deeply, she knew from the inside that she is joy. She went home.
Wow.
She went home and she realized, I am joy. She just didn't just know that through her mind. She truly incorporated it. So she went home and she said she got healed from a clinically depressed state. She's actually also still doing enlightenment and also part of the Global Dyad Meditation Network. So Robert, when he learned from Charles Berner, he became an enlightenment teacher. They are called masters still today. So he also taught enlightenment intensive, and years later he got to know Marshall B. Rosenberg, the founder of the nonviolent communication. And Robert says that the enlightenment intensive along with nonviolent communication stands out as the two most effective and powerful transformational processes that I have ever experienced. So what Robert did, he combined the two. So he took elements from the enlightenment intensive and then from what he understood as this, his spiritual approach to nonviolent communication, and put them together. And what came out was the beauty of need, Dyad meditation. So we were exploring, how does a certain need live inside of me, or what is a certain need for myself. So we were dyading around needs, which is the core of nonviolent communication. So then it developed from there. So I think that's quite a powerful statement. And for me, I have done so many different meditation practices. That's the one I'm staying with, because it's so nice. There's so many elements to it. And as we started from being present, and being present is one of the core element also in nonviolent communication. So practicing presence with someone else. So it's just a huge exercise and greatly valuable for myself and also for my partner, of course.
Yeah. So actually, when I hear you say it's the combination, I hear presence is very important. So I would call this the skill presencing, as I call it in the book. And there's another skill, in Dutch it's verbindende communicatie. It means something like collaborative communication or connecting communication, because especially exploring feelings and needs, that's what I learned in the nonviolent communication. And do this exploration without judgment, and really being curious about what's there, and really diving into acknowledging this need, and finding better strategies or fulfilling strategies to fulfill that need. And I guess that doing a Dyad meditation is also very fulfilling, in a way that you can explore the need in this, I would say, dialogue process. Because for people who don't know it, I guess it's good to just say something about the format, because now it seems like, oh, it's an enlightened meditation, and if you do it, you will walk away on wings. And I think it's good to say it's a very practical way of talking. And
it is good to have also, because I also want to be very clear, what are we talking about? Because the Dyad itself, just the format, can be used in different practices, but the way how we practice is like on the Global Dyad, it is definitely not a dialogue. It is being done in pairs, but we're not dialoguing, and that's part of the magic that happens. And of course we can use it as it's also being used in nonviolent communication settings. We can also use it more in an adaptive way of having kind of a dialogue, or even like the Satori process, which is also Claire Soloway. She did also learn from from Charles Berner, and then because she was in the Rajneesh Bhagwan community at the time, she said, I want this to be much more a dialogue. So she changed it a little bit. But I want to be very clear what we're doing online, or also what I know that Robert Gonzalez and Robert Krishishnik does, and most of the people who learn from Robert, it is definitely not a dialogue. It is receiving the question.
People who are looking, Robert Krishishnik and Robert Gonzalez are both nonviolent communication trainers.
Exactly, and they also teach the global. They also teach the Dyad meditation through their awakening. So I'm happy to name them, and I'm happy to name them because that's where I learned from. And for me, this, you know, it's really about spreading the word and bringing it out so people know how to, when they hear about diets. Is this coming from the Enlightenment Intensive? Is this coming from the Awakening? Is this coming from a Satori process? Which are all called Dyad meditation, but they are different ways. And that's why, for me, it was important to really make these differences and say how it all began, to have also in the book so people understand, this is what we're talking about. So coming back to what we're doing when we do the global Dyad meditation online, it is two people sitting opposite of each other, one person asking or providing or offering an inquiry or a question, and then the other person.
Online, you mean in breakout rooms, right? Because it's not really sitting in alive, but it's encountering each other in breakout rooms, and it looks like you're sitting opposite to each other.
Actually, yeah, like the two of us now, we're talking to each other. I see your face, you see my face. So when that's the beauty of Zoom. Zoom makes it possible that we can be a whole group coming together as we are right here. Now we're a whole group. Some people just listen and the two of us are talking. But when we do a diet, we then have the possibility to go into breakout sessions, which people then just one and the other person, two persons are sitting, see each other online. And even though we're in that network, and I think it's good that you mentioned this, because sometimes people, well, and then you two do the diet and the rest of us are watching. And I said, no, that's why it's important to name it. Yes, then we go into small groups or pairs, two people, and only the two people are in that virtual room, and then one person asking the question and the other person is going inside and going into that process. And the person asking the question, the witness, is just there being present with open eyes. And I say, with an open heart and a still mind.
Yeah. Just to recapitulate, to summarize, and to really become a bit clear about what is the format. Because when I say it in my own words, when there's a certain time, people come online, and they have a Zoom link, they come online, and people get together, you know, so people come in one room. And then there's a facilitator. This facilitator has a kind of beginning, like a few minutes of silent time. And when people are getting paired in a breakout room, it's mostly at random, unless people are really requesting something like, could you pair me with this and this person, or with a woman, or maybe with a man, or this facilitator will see what he or she can do. And then you pair for 5 minutes and you have a check-in, which means that you can just get to know each other. You can already ask a question, something like, what is alive in you now? So I would call it a mini diet of 5 minutes or even less. And then after 5 minutes, the facilitator is getting everybody back in the plenary room. And then there are some questions that are suggestions to use in the inquiry, because the process of the diet is actually in rounds, as we do it in 4 rounds. And one round consists of each person, one round listening, 5 minutes, and one round talking, 5 minutes. So one round is 10 minutes. And most of the time it's this pair uses one question, something like, what is alive in you now? That would be the most simple question. And so this is the first round, and then there's a second round of 10 minutes in which both persons speak and listen, and the roles are constantly changing. So one is listening, other is actually saying out loud what he or she is witnessing in himself, really doing this inquiry, while being held by the other person in a silent, warm presence, you could say. And so after 4 rounds, 40 minutes have gone by, and then everybody goes back in the plenary, and you can digest a bit. And after that hour, actually, the official Dyad, the global Dyad, is over. So just to have a little bit feeling perspective, I hope I'm clear for people who have never done this before and know how the process is going a little bit. And I can, from my experience, say that it is indeed not a dialogue as we know that it's a dialogue, because in a dialogue, people say something like, oh yeah, and asking questions, and what happened then? How do you feel now? Or maybe being inclined to give solutions or wanting to solve the problem of this other person. And this other person is really inquiring, going deep, and maybe sharing a lot of things. And the other person is not saying, oh, yeah, really? Well, I can offer you some coaching. Please come after the Dyad to me, and I'm going to give you a very good coaching of 10 sessions, and you'll be healed after that. And so in that sense, it's not a dialogue. It's really 5 minutes per, this person is doing this self-inquiry out loud while this other person is listening as a silent witness with an open heart and being present, and then the role switches, and this happens 4 times.
And I think you mentioned something really important, especially as it is not a dialogue, and what is very important, and that's maybe also where we come to, we create a safe space, and part of that safe space is that I'm not referring to what you just shared. In a Dyad, I'm receiving the inquiry, receive the question, and I try to listen to it fully in that present moment. So I'm not referring to something I just heard or what has been shared just a moment ago, because as you said, presencing means I'm here and now in this present moment. So I receive the question fully new and fresh, and then I see what emerges inside of me. And so we are not referring to what the other person was saying, and it's nothing. If you might touch some parts inside of you that are painful, maybe there is some mourning around, something might come up inside of you that can be, doesn't have to, but it can be. And then of course the normal reaction from my side would kind of trying to console you, or when I'm trained in NVC, I want to empathize with you, I want to give empathy to you, or sometimes when I'm a therapist, I want to try to fix or try to make the pain go away. And all this is not part of the Dyad. We're not doing this because we're fully trusting that whatever emerges inside of you in my silent present is good enough. We're trusting the process, that you completely are able to handle your own pain, to handle your despair, maybe even to handle your frustration when that comes up, or to fully engage into your joy if that comes up. So I don't have to, I like that image, that there's that stage for you, and the 5 minutes you're diving into your inquiry, it's your stage, and I'm there just as a witness. I'm not putting anything from my side on your stage. So you have this 5 minutes and I'm there present witnessing, but I'm not interacting. I think that's very important.
Yeah. It's in my book, I wrote 2 books, and another book is about team coaching with the authentic dialogue, which is a team method. And in this book, I also wrote something about sharing your inner dialogue. And I would say from my experience in this diet, one is really safe to share the real deep inner dialogue. What are you telling yourself? What is really going on in yourself, without somebody having to solve it. And that's a great safe space to inquire and to research and self-reflect without the fear of being judged or being manipulated, or being that everything you say can be used against yourself. You know, that it's a wonderful way to share what I call the inner dialogue. And therefore, I guess also has a healing effect. Because I do want to talk about the healing effect, but I also want to say something practical. And that is, when people do it online and they are getting into pairs, they have to time themselves. So some people, they have this little, timer, and they push the button every 5 minutes, so they keep the track of the time themselves. Other people, they have an app that rings a bell every 5 minutes, because the whole process is 40 minutes, and after about 43 minutes, the facilitator is calling everybody back. So then that diet process just ends. And it's the responsibility of this diet pair to keep track of time themselves.
Yes, Zoom doesn't yet provide the possibility that we can do the timing. So it is good. So people, mostly when they are new, so for example, people of course can, they're free to join because the platform is for free. So people can join, and we then have someone of the hosts will will introduce them in the beginning, and they can just join. And if they don't have a timer yet, one of the person they are doing the diet with definitely will have one of the timer. But it's good to have the your own timing.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm also curious about if people, because I know there are people here, I don't know if you plan to have inviting them for questions, because I'm also curious if they have any questions joining us here for today.
Yeah, we can do the questions a bit later, because I'm still interviewing you about the scientific research I want to talk about, but also that it's really something for people that's really new, I guess, because I use this diet format also in trainings to let them have this experience of sharing their inner dialogue. And people who are used to a conversation, they notice it's really different, but sometimes also for them difficult. I know from experience that they have this, and I did it then for 3 minutes per round, right? 3 minutes, somebody sharing the inner dialogue and this other person witnessing, and then changing roles. And even for 3 minutes, they have this, space, and they share the inner dialogue a little bit like, okay, I'm not used to it. And after 2 minutes, they don't know what to say anymore. And then it's silent, because the 3 minutes are yours. So you can be silent, you can talk. And the other person who is a silent witness has to get used to this role too, because this person does not ask any questions and does not even nod or say, he or she doesn't smile or encourage anything to say or to be silent. He or she doesn't use any language, doesn't say, shh. It's so And
It's definitely quite challenging for people who have never done it. Well,
yeah,
some people, because it's really depending what's your background. If you have a background of meditation, very often, I just like last Sunday I had one a young man. He was there. It was his second diet, and we went so deep. It was such a loving connection, but it's because he has a background of also meditating, and I can completely relate what you're talking about when you do this in the context of a communication retreat. The thing is, and I think that's why it is so valuable, normally we don't listen to understand. We're listening to kind of already answer something the other person or responding to something. So it's quite a good exercise to truly listen without interacting, to just be present. And for some people that's quite challenging, and for some people they say, oh my God, is that a relaxing state of I don't have to say anything. I can just be there and be present, and I don't have to react. But it's both ways. It's just, for our nervous system, when there's something new, we always feel a little bit of stress, because it's always, somehow our system always takes this as a little bit of a dangerous situation. But the moment we have our first experience, the system calms down and we can really relax into it. So yes, it can be challenging to just be there for 5 minutes without interacting, just being there. Or even when I'm not used to track what's going on inside of me, and I'm not used to even explain or not explain, express what's going on inside of me, it can be quite challenging in the beginning, and it's so worth doing it.
Yeah, because those two people, they create, by doing this process, a sacred space together, right? And maybe that's also a good bridge to go into more about the scientific research that has been done. Because it's not something that's really fluffy and you do it and then, and then you get enlightened. It does have an effect, and it's also measured, I guess.
Yeah, it is. The beauty of when I had this inspiration to make this available online through to the world, let's say, in the same year, it was in 2017, in the same year, the Max Planck Institute from Germany, they released one of their studies. They actually had already done studies on diets. So what they found out, that people doing diets really, when they do diets on a regular basis, the stress level is reduced. So what they called social stress is, I don't have it, I think it's about 50% of people who have done it on a regular basis, that's the social stress factor is reduced by 50%. And that means social stress is the stress that is the most stressing in our period of time. And that means, what do other people think of me? Am I still liked? How do they evaluate me? And when we learn to go inside in the presence of someone else, the more we do this, the more likely we are not so stressed around what do other people think. So that's one part. And then the other part is, they really found out that it reduces loneliness. And as you said in the beginning, especially in these times we are right now, so many people find themselves at home, not interacting, or not, we have this social distancing, but this doesn't mean we have to distance ourselves emotionally and on a human basis. We still can use the internet, or we still can use other mediums to deeply satisfyingly connect on a very deep, I call it on a soul level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you call it spiritual NVC, I believe, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other, I call it spiritual NVC. So it is that it's part of the spiritual NVC. The diets are a huge part in this, because the diets for me, you know, whatever practice someone does, the diets help to really to go deeper with whatever practice you do. So even if you come from whatever, maybe even some kind of a religious background, there are so many things that are you're told this is the way it is. In a diet, you can just ask the question, is this really true? Or how does this live inside of me? So through the diet, you become your own inner guru, your own inner teacher. And so you can use it in any place. As we said, you can use it in an online communication training. You can use it I had one of my participants, she used it with her therapist in her psychotherapy. She said, you know, she asked the therapist to ask her questions she came up with, and the therapist, she was an open-minded and open-hearted person. I said, okay, let's do it. So she came up with the question, that the client came up with the question, and the therapist was asking her, and she then was introduced to the diet. They didn't do the other way around. Wouldn't probably work in a therapist-client role, but it was actually really helpful for them. So in whatever situation, we can use the diet to find our own inner answers, and not just something I have heard.
Yeah. Let me say two things in addition to it. One is to really clarify also that the power of diet is not a therapy, right? So it can be used because in your example, it is used in this client-coach relationship or in the psychotherapy. But when we do the power of diet, it is not meant to be as a therapy. So I guess that's very good to emphasize. And the second that I want to add is that I really love the questions that we have. Well, because actually, when you are, I call it a dietee, the practitioner of the diet, the other person is actually asking the question first. So it enables you to go inside and do the inquiry. And you yourself, the one who is doing the inquiry, can choose this question. It can be from what's alive in you now, or it can be something like sensing deep into your heart what is alive, or life moving through you, what does it want, or looking through the eyes of love, what do you see? There are so many beautiful questions that when this question is just actually opening a perspective, because it's the invitation to look through the eyes of love. And what I also like is that people can also really share the resistance they have. You know, if there is this question like looking through the eyes of love, what do you see? The other person can go inside and just reflect and just say, I don't see any love at this moment. You know, what are you talking about? And you know, you can talk 5 minutes about anything that is happening in this resistance against the eyes of love, while the question staying the same. And then that's it. No healing, no solution, no construction. After 5 minutes, there's the bell, ding, and then the roles switch. So then you will become again the person who is holding space for the other person, and maybe asking in that round for the other person this question, looking through the eyes of love, what do you see? And then a whole new realm is just opening up. That's it. And all these questions are so supportive and helpful.
And I'm curious, I don't know if you plan, but I'm curious if it's helpful for people just, and if we only go for 1 or 2 minutes, that they do get a taste of what it is about. Because there's one thing about talking, and I know that is some people really enjoy a lot of information first, but I also am curious about if we could just do very quickly, just one, maybe it's just a minute, because we're used, we can dip into quite quickly with one of the questions that we are working on right now. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's okay. Then I take my.
Let's maybe have just 2 minutes each. So, and I mean, people, just to give, I think the beauty is in experiencing it and to get that sense of that quality that we're creating. And I'm not really fully trusting that we can convey what we're talking about when we're not doing a little demo.
Yeah, okay. So what about taking an easy question for somebody who's doing it for the first time? Something like, what is alive in you now? Okay. Right? And
let's go with that. And are you timing? So you can ask me first. You want to go first, or you want to ask me first?
If you ask me first and then I ask you first, and okay. This is also a very good demonstration for those who are looking now at this webinar, because before you go into the Dyad inquiry, there's always this question of, okay, who is doing the first role first? So, okay, I will start the timer and you can ask me if you want.
Okay, so you go for 2 minutes, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's alive in you right now?
I notice there's a calmness and an excitement inside myself. It's like I'm excited because I'm telling myself that this is such a wonderful project and this is such an exciting opportunity for a lot of people to join, and a very heart-centered answer to loneliness. I feel supported by people who are engaging in it, that there has become, or get like a community of people who are doing this Dyad, and that there is this kind of group that is holding this compassionate energy or space by practicing the Dyad, and that all these people are just kind of, normal people. And what I call normal people, I'm telling myself these are normal people. I know this is a label, but I'm telling myself these are not, like people who go to the therapy daily, or people who are billionaires, or, I noticed I'm categorizing already. I noticed there's a part in me that really hopes that this recording is going to work. This is the 2 minutes, okay, thank you. So I'm going to time again for 2 minutes, and now we're switching roles.
Thank you, yes, and both, it's also that we both say thank you, just to really honor the being heard and being, and also for expressing. Okay, so, yeah. You're gonna ask me the question?
Yeah, I'm going to time now. What is alive in you now?
I feel a little bit of tension in my head, probably about talking, and a lot of warmth in my heart. A lot of warmth about its gratitude and There's something, actually, it's just bringing tears to my eyes almost. I just had a thought coming in about we're all guided in this. So and an image that comes up right now, connecting with a question we're working on right now, is that being in that loving presence. And I see that image, that inner image that comes up inside of me, and how much I truly, let me just see, I'm not talking about it. It's something that wants to come through in the sense of being in a loving, kind presence with each other. Being able, having the time and the space to create that loving presence. Or maybe not even, we don't have to create it. We just have to step back and give space to it. Thank you.
Well, that was a good demonstration of a mini diet of 2 minutes per person for one round.
And you know what's happening? And I think that's also part, I know that you wanted to cover that too. What's happening in a diet when we are opening ourselves? Normally what I feel and what I can see, my thinking, the speed of my thinking calms down. So I would say, if I would measure my brain waves, that my brain waves become, switch from where I'm normally at in beta, I go to alpha and even deeper. So when we're in a diet, it has an effect on both sides. So sometimes one person might be very activated in the beginning, but being in a diet and calming down creates that inner space of, and we actually learn to down-regulate our nervous system. And with doing that, our autonomic nervous system calms down. So I'm moving out of high beta into alpha or even theta, where then I receive, and these are the brain waves, where I'm more open to receive insights from within, which I'm not able to think about in normal. So it really helps us both to calm down. And just these 2 minutes, I can feel it immediately, just the 2 minutes. The speed of language is slower, just everything has slowed down.
Yeah, it's really great because the brainwaves is also something that supports this scientific research. This has such a healing effect on the body and on the mind, and it's also what I described, the skill to relax, because that's also one of the happiness skills that I described in the book. So it's really beautiful how this gives the beautiful answers, how presencing the skill to really relax and deeply go into this deeper calming brainwaves, and the skill to have this collaborative communication attitude, explore feelings and needs, and scanning one's body in a compassionate, non-judgmental way, is really supporting more happiness. And especially in this time of this new area, the social distancing and the lockdown, very, very useful and supportive. Just some logistical information, because now it's almost 1 hour that we did this interview, and we did cover everything that we wanted to talk about. And I guess we still have a little bit time to go into questions. And those who have questions, I would like to ask you to put it in the chat. So if there is any questions, then I can use the questions from the chat, and then we can take it into this interview. And also because if a webinar is about 1 hour, it's okay for people to start watching it. And that's why it's a good time measure. And I hope that we did cover a lot. So just let's see if there's anything in the chat that is that has any questions, or maybe we just were very clear.
Cassian.
Yeah, but she gave us some input. I already integrated. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just really also want to honor the people who have stayed, and I know we did quite some talking to explain, especially for people who are new to the process, because many of them who are here, they of course know already what we covered, and so just really appreciate for having the audience also here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Then I'm going to get to a finishing. I really want to thank you, Simone. Thank you so much for all the work that you do, for inviting us, for creating all these facilitators around you who are also hosting the Dyad. I know that the Dyad is really done daily, you know, on several times. In the Dutch time, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm doing it now regularly. There was a time that 7 o'clock in the morning was not my happiest time. It's still not my favorite time, but I'm really happy to do the Dyad in the morning. And I have one, how you could say, positive thing about it, that when it's 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm already in that other brainwave. So it takes not so much time to go much deeper. And if people want to do it, they want to join it, they can also go to a website. Can you mention that website, Simone?
Yes, it's www.globaldyadmeditation, all in one word, globaldyadmeditation.org. Mm-hmm. So, and you can just sign in, and then you will receive all the information. When you're new, you will be guided to a couple of links to just, you're asked to have just a look at the links. And when you're also new for there for the first time, be there just a couple of minutes earlier. And as you said, I'm really grateful. I'm not able to do this all by myself. I have a lot of hosts who are supporting me, and I really also want to honor them. They're all doing this for free, so it's just really a service to humanity, so people can join and for free and just meet on the platform 2 to 3 times per day. So thank you very much, and also for all the people who are joining. I mean, we would be quite lonely even though
real
know how to if no one is showing up.
Well, I'm sure that this webinar will be seen in the replay too, especially because your book has become the #1 in Kindle. I can imagine that the webinar will be seen in the replay too. And I also just want to mention one person that I'm talking, that really tried to do this practice also in his company. He's the owner, the co-owner, and the CEO of Kabisa, which is an IT company. He did this process together with some of his co-workers, and I think it's really courageous that he does this. I'm also writing a blog about this. It's to be found on my website, which is a Dutch website. The translation is Skill for Happiness, but in Dutch it's trainjegelukscompetenties.nl. I will make sure I will get the link to everybody who also signed up. I will share this on my LinkedIn, this link. And when this webinar is closed and the recording is ready, I will also post this recording in the podcast, and the podcast is to be seen in the replay on YouTube and on my site.
Of course, because that was just a question, if it's possible to have it as yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed, and I think it's wonderful. It's just a wonderful opportunity to bring the word out. And yes, the book is available. So if someone is interested to know more, you can find it on Amazon. At the moment, it's just on Amazon or on the Global Dyad website. Also, if you don't want to order through Amazon, just you can order also through the website, the globaldyadmeditation.org. So thank you so much, and just also everyone who has shown up. Thank you so much for coming.
And if you really like the video, if you're watching this in the YouTube, please feel free to share this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Chief Happiness Officer at Teams, and see you next time in the next webinar.